In this mini video, we're going to look at Bootstrap's grid system, which uses a series of containers, rows, and columns to help you build layouts of all shapes and sizes. What's wonderful about the grid system is its responsive behavior, whereby columns will rearrange depending on the size of the screen. On a big screen, it might look appropriate to have 3 columns of content, A, B, and C, all side by side. But of course, on a mobile phone screen, where the real estate is a bit more limited, it might make more sense to stack them on top of each other. Bootstrap can handle this automatically. So I have here, once again, a minimal Bootstrap page. And what I want to do is create a row, a single row that spans the page and has 3 equal width columns containing letters A, B, and C. The very first thing I must do is create a Bootstrap container to put this in. After that, I create the row, and after that, I create the 3 columns one by one, nested within that row. So that's enough to display A, B, and C in a row, but it's a bit hard to gauge where the columns begin and where the columns end without adding a background color. To resolve this, I'm going to go to the Bootstrap documentation and have a look at some utilities for styling the elements on my page. In particular, I'm going to look at what I can do with colors. Over here you can see a few built-in classes for different background colors that Bootstrap provides you. And just to make some progress, I'm going to use the background colors for success, danger, and warning. Of course, normally these would be on things such as error messages. Lovely. Now, just to make this a little more interesting, I'm going to add another row. Again, just with 3 columns, and this time a light background. Lovely. So at this stage, I'm ready to evaluate how this layout changes as the viewport changes. So what I want to do is hit F12 and open up Chrome's tools for simulating this. As you can see here, when I shrink it, gradually the width of each column gets smaller and smaller, and then eventually at the end they stack. But it doesn't do it in a very neat way. It waits until the last possible moment. We'll address that issue of stacking a little bit later. First, what I want to show you is that you can actually change the relative widths of these different columns. This is done by adding a number to the end of col. So if I make the first one 6 and the latter two 2, then that means the first column is 3 times as wide as B, 3 times as wide as C. Now what you'll notice is that this row no longer fully fills the container. And that's because each row consists of 12 columns. So we've only specified 10. It means we're too short, and so we have a gap. That's fine. We can make it look a little bit better by centering it, adding this class to our row. But if you want to cover all of the columns available, those numbers should add up to 12, or you shouldn't use numbers at all and let Bootstrap do it automatically. Before we move on, I'm just going to quickly reduce the width of the second row to 10 columns as well, but in a slightly different way. Next, what I would like to do is specify that when the screen width is below a certain value, that these columns should not be squeezed together, but rather stacked vertically on top of each other. And this is achieved by adding small, medium, large, or XL between col and the number. If I choose SM, for example, intuitively what this means is that the column should be vertically stacked if the screen width is below Bootstrap's small breakpoint. If it's wider than that breakpoint, it should be arranged side by side, horizontally, according to the specified number. This is best shown by example, so let me add SM to each of these columns, and then let's see what happens when we reduce the screen width below Bootstrap's small breakpoint of 576 pixels. Just look at that mobile-friendly stacking we have here. I'd like to show you one final example where we use a grid to put together a wanted criminal type of thing. I'm going to keep it quite simple. My first row is simply going to span across all 12 columns. I'm going to make it a warning color. And my second row, initially I'll just split it into 2 halves. In the left part I'm going to add the name of the wanted person, On the right part, I'm going to add a mugshot. Yeah, this seems a suitably dodgy name. And to make this mugshot responsive, in Bootstrap, all you have to do is add the class img-fluid. Now you can see that when the viewport is reduced, this doesn't work very well because the photo disappears into nothingness. So what I want to do is go back to the option I showed you earlier and make sure that it stacks on screen widths below the small breakpoint. I'm just going to use the small option again and set the widths to 8 and 4, adding up to 12. And then you can see that it works a lot better. As the viewport is reduced, suddenly the two columns stack. And that's it for this video. I've introduced Bootstrap's grid system for responsive layouts, emphasizing this 12-column system. We've looked at background color utilities available in Bootstrap. I've shown you how columns can be stacked on top of each other on small devices. And I've demonstrated a responsive image using my face. See you next time.